Testing mark 1 2. Testing mark 1 2. Testing mark 1 2. Let me check if we are sure we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Uh, okay, let me check my Facebook and see if we're live here. Check the volume. Guys, welcome to the Tom Tombika Unplugged podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Tom Tombika Unplugged podcast. Okay, yes, we are live. We are live on Facebook here. Let me check YouTube and Rumble. Let me check YouTube and Rumble. We are live on Facebook. Okay, confirmation. Live on Facebook here. Let me check YouTube and Rumble. Okay, just got a notification from Rumble that we are live on Rumble. Let me check YouTube and Rumble. We are live on Facebook. Okay, confirmation. Let me check YouTube here and see. Okay, let me check this on. Check it on this side. Only too far you go. Baby, close. YouTube still wants to use a camera. I'm trying to verify my Rumble. No YouTube. We are on Rumble. We're on Facebook. I'm trying to verify the YouTube. If we are on, let me check this. Check it from here. YouTube giving me problem. YouTube. I need YouTube violation of my first account. I open the next one. Okay, the next account. So we are live on YouTube. Okay. Okay. We are live on YouTube here. Yes. We are live on YouTube. So guys, you can go check out the RPRS and Trade Nexus on YouTube. You will find us. Our original account, which is Tom Tombika Unplugged on YouTube. We have 2 violations, and so that we cannot live stream from YouTube with that account. And so yesterday I opened a new YouTube account, and the name is the RPRS and Trade Nexus. So you can find us there, and that's our new channel. And I'm live streaming from YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble simultaneously. So we are live, we are set to go. So let me Johanna Josh. I'm not sure it's Josh. GOG. Johanna Josh or Johanna GOG. Thanks. Thanks, Johanna. Thanks for following us. Appreciate. So it's been quite a while. We have never had any international trade or intellectual property related topic. Uh, we have dived into different genres to open our audience and our scope of people following our page, our podcast, to a lot of other interesting topics relating to not only intellectual property and international trade, but as well as dating and intersexual dynamics, new and emerging technology, politics, and male self improvement. So we have diversified the podcast, but originally we were the Intellectual Property and Trade Nexus podcast, and now we are the Tom Tombeka Unplugged podcast. So today we have a trade-related topic to discuss. We start uh, one episode. Today we start an episode on uh, trade facilitation, general trade facilitation. What trade facilitations in trade entails in international trade or domestic trade. When we say trade facilitation, where it means, uh, what are the requirements for traders to facilitate trade? What are the requirements for a nation state or a member of the World Trade Organization to facilitate trade? How does trader work with trade-related institutions like the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the Customs Authority, the Environmental Agency, and all agencies or ministries and entities related to facilitating trade. So let's move straight into our general trade facilitation, specifically for transparency and formalities. So today's topic we are covering will be on the general trade facilitation, specifically focusing on transparency and formalities. And the scope of the topic for trade facilitation today, we will be using the United Nations global survey on digital and sustainable trade facilitation. So the United Nations in 2021 and 2022 uh, did a global survey on digital trade as well as sustainable trade facilitation process, and they came out with about uh, 38 requirements 38 requirements that a member of the World Trade Organization needs to implement in order to facilitate trade domestically, regionally, and internationally. So let's focus on the global trade facilitation and what the material, like I said, we'll be using uh, as our scope for this discussion has to do with the United Nations Global Survey on Digital and Sustainable Trade Facilitation, the revised Kyoto Convention, and the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement. So these are the three reference documents that we are going to be using for this topic. The United Nations Digital and Sustainable Trade Facilitation, the revised Kyoto Convention, and the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement. These are our reference documents. And so I would like to share, let me share my screen so you can see this document I'm referring to. So this is it. So let me share my screen so you can have a look. So this is the Digital and Sustainable Trade Facilitation Global Report for 2023. This is the most recent reflection of global trade facilitation process among members that are member states of the World Trade Organization that trade globally, regionally, and domestically. So this is the reference paper that we're going to be using for today's topic. So let's go back here and continue from here. So the general trade facilitation first requirement is transparency and formalities. And under transparency and formality, we want to focus on the transparency measures today. Hopefully next week we will focus on the formalities measure because it's a large and longer topic to discuss. So transparency measure, the first measure on this first requirement on transparency measures has to do with publication of existing import and export regulations on the internet. So the internet has to be a place that traders can access information, whether traders, domestic traders, or regional traders, and international traders that are interested in trading, importing, and exporting with a specific country. Take, for example, Liberia. They have interest in maybe exporting products from Liberia to other countries or importing products from other countries to Liberia. The transparency measure first requirement has to do with publication of existing import and export regulations on the internet so as to give the traders the ability to access new laws, new regulations that has to do with trade-related matters, trade-related regulations, policies, and procedure. So that irrespective of their location, whether locally or regionally or internationally, they can have access, they can use the internet to see the requirements for importation as well the requirement of exportation, and in terms of tariffs that they need to pay, taxes, and all the requirements would be placed on a specific website. Should in case be if they are dealing with the custom authority, they need access to information from the custom authority. They can just check or Google in the custom authority and go on their website to access this information. And if they are thinking regarding establishing a new business or doing a business registration or working with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, maybe establishing a new industry, what are the requirements? They have to go to the respective institutions' website to access the information that is needed for to facilitate trade in a much smoother manner. So under transparency measure, the first requirement for facilitating trade locally, regionally, and internationally has to do with publication of existing import and export regulation. The second requirement is stakeholder regulations. Stakeholder regulations. How do you regulate traders? Uh, Those are the custom authority, those are the environmental agencies in case the trade related issue that's been dealt with has to do with some environmental component, and the certain certification or documentation that is required from the environmental agency or authority in a specific country, or business registration, import or export permit, where to obtain them, maybe from the Ministry of Commerce. All these related stakeholders that are operating within the commerce or industry agricultural sector of a specific nation has to ensure that the traders are communicated with on new laws, new regulations, that they are informed, and there are ways to contact them speedily on new regulations and seek their input before the laws are implemented, before the regulations are implemented. During the process of writing the regulations, formulating the regulations, you have to seek the inputs and perspective of stakeholders. So you have to have a stakeholder regulation in a specific country. This next requirement has to do with advanced publication or notification. Advanced publication or notification has to do with before importation. Maybe you have registered your business and you got all the documentation from the respective institutions, and you are outside of the country, you want to import a container of goods and put them, let's say tires, a container of tires that you want to import in Liberia. But before the actual importation process of that container, you need to send, prior to that, you need to send in your documentation on the bill of findings, on all the items that are within that container, uh, for you to have an advanced publication or notification that these are the items or products that I want to import. And then prior to the actual importation of the items, your documents can already be in the system. And when that container is imported in the country, they can just go on in the system and see all that is required. Then the next measure has to do with advanced ruling on tariff classification, which is very critical. That has to do with the payment of fees, the payment of all the requirement that it takes to import in terms of tariff classification, that if you are importing or exporting tires, there are specific tariff rates for tires, and that rate need to be the exact rate that is placed on your documentation, and that will end out being the sum of the cost that you need to pay. Or whether importing or exporting, your tariff classification has to be correct and exact, because if it is not correct and you are importing tire, and then the tariff classification that is being used is a tariff classification for X, there will be problems on classifying of goods under the wrong tariff classification, and then the rate will not be the exact, and that causes a lot of problem. And so that's why advanced ruling on tariff classification is needed. And then lastly, the last measure on transparency has to do with independent appeal mechanism. So the independent appeal mechanism is wherein the trader has some difference. Let me stop sharing and go back to the wide screen. So with regards to independent appeal mechanism, is basically put in place for trader to have some recourse if there are some disagreement, if there are some omission, if there are errors, the trader have So let's begin with transparency measures. Transparency measures. So transparency measures are well implemented globally in terms of ensuring that traders, that government institutions. Okay, okay, okay. So it's okay now. So like I was saying, transparency measures are well implemented. Are few of the some of the measures that are being well implemented globally because government have the responsibility through their respective institutions to ensure that they facilitate trade. And the process of facilitating trade is for the benefit and well-being of the government to generate revenue for the running of the government and servicing the, the general public and the nation as a whole. So government around the world, specifically WTO related member states, have made it their obligation to ensure that transparency measures are implemented to generate more revenue and to keep the government running smoothly and effectively. So the first measure on transparency that has to do with publication is what we want to stress on here. So the publication of existing import and export regulations makes it a very, very smooth or accessible for traders to trade across borders. So the publication measures enables a trader in France that want to do business in Liberia to go on the internet to a specific institution website, be it the Ministry of Trade website, to check up the requirement that he or she needs in order to export from France to Liberia. What are the requirements? I want to do business in Liberia. What are the requirements? So the publication measure ensure that all the necessary requirements, the necessary regulations and laws are published on the internet by respective trade related institutions for the general public to globally have for any part of the world to have access to those requirements and how they can ensure that they comply with those requirements. So to make cross-border trade more efficient and cost-effective, publication is required to make traders know all that is required prior to the actual exportation or importation or sale of product. And so with all these required information being accessible and available on respective institution website, then traders can easily have access to those information on the internet, and it provides the necessary transparency that is required and predictability as well that is required of the regulations, the procedures of cross-border trade as well as domestic trade. So publications of the required regulations and laws ensures that traders can easily access information that is required to trade across borders. More importantly, it, it highlights the requirement of transparency, meaning the respective institution, be it the Customs Authority, the Ministry of Trade, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture, all the requirements that traders need in order to import or export is made public on the internet, and traders can easily have access to those laws and regulations and know what it entails to export or import from a specific country. So it highlights the transparency and predictability requirement because with you having access to information, uh, maybe from custom, you you are placed in a position where you know the specific fees to pay, the specific allocation to reach out to, and the specific maybe email address or address to send your documentation. So that make it transparent and predictable to trade across border, having access to the necessary laws and regulations. The UNCFA Regulation 38, the United Nations did quite an intensive study, uh, and it came up with this regulation number 38, which is a complete guide on setting up a trade information portal, uh, which is acronym TIPS. So TIPS is Trade Information Portal. So the United Nations did a regulation in order to facilitate trade, to enhance transparency and predictability in trade. They did this regulation number 38, and the regulation serves as a complete guide to setting up a trade information portal by nations. So Liberia, France, Ivory Coast, Ghana, being members of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations as well, can use this regulation number 38 as a guide, if as a guide to set up a trade information portal that is effective and efficient and that can aid traders in accessing information anywhere in the world for a specific country. So the TIPS, which is Trade Information Portal, is also called the National Trade Repository. So the National Trade Repository, which happens to be the Trade Information Portal as well, is an online facility where all information is aggregated uh, in terms of substantive as well as procedure on import and export with trade related institutions. So the Trade Information Portal, which is also known as the National Trade Repository, is a facility that is an online facility. It could be a website or data site where traders and other stakeholders, other parties can have access to an aggregate of all trade related information in terms of substantive as well as procedure on import and export. So that is the National Trade Repository or the Trade Input Portal. So in the National Trade Repository, you can have access to all information in terms of import and export from anywhere in the world, and the National Trade Repository is regularly updated on new laws, new regulations regarding uh, trade facilitation, processes and procedure that is required to facilitate trade with a specific or in a given country. So all this information are on the internet, and the national repository could be regarded as a website or database that holds information on all trade related regulations. So traders from anywhere in the world can have access to this information and use it appropriately to trade in a given country. So the National Trade Repository also allows traders to obtain accurate and comprehensive information on from a single source. So it's a single source that traders can access adequate, accurate, and comprehensive, up-to-date information from. The trade import portal should also have an English version. Take, for example, Portugal, that the inhabitants and the nation there speak Portuguese, and the national language is Portuguese. But people or international traders outside of Portugal that want to trade with the country need access to our regulations that is in English, which is our universal language that they can use to have all the information that is required. So the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, they always encourage our member states, aside from the national language, always have an English version of the national input portal where international traders outside of your country can have access to it and use it to trade with you. But most often, countries face difficulty, especially developing and least developed countries. They face difficulty in having an up-to-date version of the trade information portals in English. Either is because they are facing financial difficulty or they don't have the technical know-how to do so. And so other countries that the national language is not English, sometimes it's difficult to really access information. Because if you go to the Portuguese National Trade Information Portal, everything is written in Portuguese. And in order for others to have access to information there, it needs to be in English because English expands to a lot of people. English is a global language. So tips must always be updated with current information, current laws, current regulations, and policy that our nation have reformed, whatsoever recent reforms are taking place, or new laws are being amended, or new laws are come into play, the trade information portal should always be updated with the most recent information, and it should have an English version that is more common to the global community in order for them to know the information that is required to trade with a specific country. Then we move to stakeholders consultation on any new tariff regulations. So the government is under obligation to liaise, to have consultation, to arrange, organize consultation with traders, other interested parties that operate in the trading sector, be a non-governmental organization or governmental institution. The government is under obligation to have stakeholders consultation on any new or draft regulations prior to the finalization or prior to that regulations coming into force. Take for example the National Trade Facilitation Agreement. There are specific components that the government want to implement, and in order to implement that, the government had drafted a draft regulation, and they need to organize a meeting or consultation where traders and other stakeholders in that country will be invited to discuss and make input to that regulation before the finalization, the first draft, the second draft, and the finalization of that uh, regulation or law, and then before it comes into force. So the government is on an obligation to ensure stakeholder consultation. Advance publication and notification of new laws and regulations before implementation. That's an obligation on the government to ensure that that obligation is met according to the World Trade Facilitation Agreement. So both measures, both stakeholder consultation and advanced publication and notification are aligns with the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement, Article 2. Article 2 of the TFA talks about opportunity to comment, opportunity to gain information before entry into force, and consultation. So that's an obligation as a WTO member, specifically under the Trade Facilitation Agreement, Article 2, the opportunity to comment, opportunity for new information before entry into force, and consultation. So Article 2 calls for member states to offer opportunity to traders and other state parties to comment or give feedback on any proposal, regulations, laws, whether through the introductory stage or through an amendment or reform that is taking place. Article 2 highlights the obligation of the government to have or to give traders and trading partners the opportunity to give feedback and make inputs to that regulation or law. Moving forward, moving forward. So any law, any regulation that is related to the movement of goods, whether through importation or exportation or by other means, the release of goods, the clearing of goods, including goods in transit. Article 2 highlights the obligation to inform stakeholders, have consultation with stakeholders, and seek stakeholder inputs and feedbacks on that regulation or law before coming into force. So that's the obligation. That's the mandate of the Trade Facilitation Agreement, Article 2, to all member states of the World Trade Organization. And this also allows traders and other interested parties to be acquainted with the laws, the regulations that is enforced, and it also set the basis for them to adjust some of their business practices or administrative or financial practices before the law come into force. So if the law or regulation has something to do with the taxes you pay, the tariffs you pay, whether it be a reduction in the tariffs or increment in the tariff, those consultations will enable you to be informed and to take the necessary action to adjust yourself and prepare that when the regulation or laws come into force, you are already acquainted, you're already abreast, and you have taken the necessary steps to easily assimilate with that law or regulation. It allows traders to make the necessary adjustment, like I said, before the implementation of the laws and regulation. And the next requirement has to do with advanced ruling on tariff classification and origin of imported goods. That's another critical requirement for trade facilitation under transparency and formalities. But today our focus is transparency. So advanced ruling on tariff classification and the origin of the imported goods aligns with Article 3 of the Trade Facilitation Agreement. So if you provide inappropriate or incorrect tariff classification, it can result into disputes, to delays, and possibly accruing additional custom costs. So if a specific product, take for example, you are importing tire in a country, and instead of going in the classification document to select tire, you mistakenly selected egg, and the classification rate, the tariff classification rate for egg is quite different from the tariff classification rate for tire. And so that error, that inappropriate information or incorrect information that is that you have indicated on the import or export documentation will affect a lot of things. It will bring about dispute, like I said, delays, and you could even incur additional costs uh, for custom clearance. So advanced ruling provides certainty on the custom duty. So the advanced ruling allows the trader to send all the documentation that is required. If you have a container, you have a vehicle in the container, you have tires, you have clothes, and you have several assorted items within that container, and they have been listed on the bill, the building, I'm forgetting the specific name, but the bill or information where all the items within the container are listed, and then the custom authority can look at the respective items, and through the tariff classification, you can know the exact sum of money that you require to pay in advance. So you submit your documentation, and then your tariff classification and the declaration is made that these are the specific tariff or taxes you need to pay for the importation of this specific container. And then you make the payment before the container maybe getting on the ship or coming into the country. And so that process allows trader trader to make the necessary decision in advance before the container enter the country. However, there are cases wherein be it the custom authority or the trader themselves can make mistake and indicate the wrong goods, the wrong product, or the custom authority can indicate the wrong tariff rates, and then it can turn out to be problematic in the future. And so, in order to avoid this, um, you have to have you have to put in place advanced rulings that will help in providing certainty on the rate of the goods to the rate to be applied on the specific goods, resulting into greater predictability for traders. So the advanced ruling is a very productive measure put in place to ensure that traders can fast track the payment of tariff and taxes process. The advanced ruling also reduces a clearance time. So if the container arrive in the country maybe 4 weeks before, you have already obtained your bill of import, you have made all the payment to the custom authority and all the related trade institutions, you have made all the payment, you have a payment receipt and all of that. And before the container hits the country, the port, you have already obtained all the necessary documentations and you are just waiting for your container to land in the country, and then you go to the port, you have all your receipts, and you can take possession of whatsoever goods that you imported into the country. So advanced ruling reduces clearance time. It reduces disputes between the custom authority and economic operators on tariff classification issues. So that's a mechanism or put in place to safeguard on tariff in inappropriate classification of tariff. And lastly, the last requirement on transparency has to do with independent appeal mechanism. Independent appeal mechanism. So let's look at the first requirement. So today we are dealing with the general trade facilitation. And under general trade facilitation, we have transparency and formalities. Today our focus is formalities, and under formalities, we have publication of existing import and export regulations on the internet, maybe through a website, through a portal, through a trade repository. Stakeholder regulations, advanced publication or notification, advanced ruling on tariff classification, and lastly, independent appeal mechanism. So this is the last requirement on the transparency that we're going to discuss. So independent appeal mechanism, which aligns with Article 4 of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, talks about procedures for appeal or review. So you need to have, the government is under obligation to establish an independent appeal mechanism wherein if traders have issues with the way and the manner in which their maybe export documentation or import documentation, the fees and the taxes. If they have issue with the custom authority or related institutions or trade institutions, according to the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement, the government will establish an independent appeal mechanism where traders can go to seek redress, to raise issues, to submit a complaint and seek redress. So that's the essence of the independent appeal mechanism. So the independent appeal mechanism provides the right to appeal in customs matter. So this is specifically for custom-related matter. We're talking about trade facilitation. There are components that deals with the Ministry of Trade or Ministry of Commerce, Industry, the Ministry of Environment. But for this particular instance, we are talking about customs-related obligations, custom-related requirement. So under the custom-related obligation and requirement of the government, the authority there is the custom authority or the custom agency for a specific, depending on the type of country. And so if a trader have complaints, qualms, and issues regarding tariff classification, regarding import-export documentation related to customs, they can use the independent appeal mechanism to highlight their complaint and seek redress. So the right to appeal in custom matter is not only important, but a fundamental element of the rule of law based legal system. So regarding the duty or obligation with independent appeal mechanism, is an obligation that is clothed in legality, clothed in complaint, clothed in seeking redress. And this mechanism provides competence to economic operator, private companies, investors that when I do business with a specific country, for example, Liberia, if I'm doing business in Liberia, I have a confidence that should in case business go wrong, should in case procedures and regulations and laws issues go wrong in that specific country, and I have a qualm or complaint, I have a specific area to go to seek redress. I can use the legal system to my disposal and to seek redress. And if I feel I was injured in any way, I can seek justice in that case. So the independent appeal mechanism is not only important for custom related matter, but it highlights the fundamental element of the rule of law based system that gave confidence to investors, economic operators, and traders to trade in a specific country. If this mechanism is not in place, it breaks or reduces traders' confidence to trade in a particular country. The appeal consists of the following levels. So there are several levels in the independent appeal, under the independent appeal mechanism. The first level has to do with the right to request the reason for the decision and omission. So you was doing business with the custom authority, you submitted in your bills, your bills of landing with all the items that you are importing in the country, the items that are in your container, and you went to the custom authority, to bill you on what you need to pay as a business person, an investor, or an economic operator, and you felt that the tariff classification was wrong or certain matter through the process of building you felt injured to a certain extent and you want to seek redress, the system is available. So first you have the right to request the reason for the decision that was made on your taxes, whatever taxes you need to pay, the decision or omission that was made, whether a decision was made or decision was not made, the decision, uh, the process was omitted, you have the right to seek an appeal. So whether through wanting to know or you have qualm whatsoever decision that were made or whatsoever decision that were omitted, through your through doing business with the custom authority, you have the right to seek redress. The second level has to do with uh, the right of the initial appeal to customs. The right of the initial appeal to customs. You firstly had an issue with the taxes or whatsoever issue you have with the custom authority, you have the right on a decision made by the authority, or if the authority didn't make a decision but omitted, you have the right to seek a redress. And secondly, you have the right to have an initial appeal through the custom authority. So you have an issue, you go to the custom authority, you say, this is my complaint, I need to seek redress. And the third level has to do with you have the right to further appeal to an authority independent of the custom authority. So an authority outside of the custom authority. So you had an issue with the custom authority, you raised the issue, and the first approach was that you go to the custom authority for a consultation to be held to seek redress or how to amicably resolve the matter. And after the final decision that was made, you are not satisfied with that decision, you have the right to go to an authority outside of the custom authority. And lastly, you have the right to appeal to a judicial authority. So the you have the first complaint, you went to the custom authority, you disagree with the decision of the custom authority. After that, a consultation, you go to an authority outside of the custom authority, a decision was made, you disagree with that decision. Lastly, you have the right to judicial authority, which happens to be the business code in this regard. So you are doing business, you are a business person, you can go, the judicial authority that will be responsible for your case is the business court. So you can go within a specific country, you go to the court, and the court will direct you to the specific court that is responsible for that matter. So this is the last measure on to transparency. So the independent appeal mechanism. So guys, thanks for following. Hopefully next week or this week we'll conclude on, we'll have a second episode where we discuss the formality measures. Today, under the General Trade Facilitation Agreement, our focus was on transparency, and the next episode will be on the formalities. The scope of our discussion presently has to do with the United Nations Global Survey on digital and sustainable trade facilitation, the revised Kyoto Convention, the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement. These are the three reference documents that we are using for this discussion on transparency under trade facilitation. The next episode will focus on formalities measures. So thank you for having us. If you have any questions, any concern, I'll leave your comment in your questions and whatsoever concern you have under the in the comment section, and we'll be able to respond to them. If you have any inquiry, we are here, we are available, we are accessible on Facebook, on YouTube. You go there, you tap in top thumb. On YouTube, you tap in the RPRS and Trade Nexus. You will find us. Our regular YouTube channel we have, which is the Tom Maker Unplugged podcast, is currently down. We cannot live stream from that YouTube page because we are under violations, and our violation will be lifted in July. So July will be able to live stream on our original channel. Well, we have our second channel here, which happens to be the Intellectual Property and Trade Nexus podcast. You go in your YouTube search engine, you type in the RPRS and Trade Nexus, and you will find us. And we're looking forward to see you on the next episode. We want to end this episode here, so let me go. Let me go on. I want to share my screen. Okay, let me share my screen so you can see the reference document before I go off. Okay, so this is where you can find us. Let me share this. This is the current channel that we are live streaming for. This is where we are live streaming from. Is the RPRS, which is Intellectual Property Rights and Trade Nexus. This is our page, our second YouTube channel, and you see this. Let me show you the original channel. Let me share this so you can see the original. I try to show all my channel here and make sure I be broadcasting my channels so you can have access to them. Okay, let me share the second channel. Okay, this is my original channel. It's the Tom Tomikai Unplugged podcast. So this is where all my videos are on YouTube. But for now, we cannot live stream from this channel. But this is where you can find us. This is where these are all my shots. I got a lot of beautiful shots on YouTube. This is the home. So this is my channel, Tom Tombeka Unplugged, where you have all my videos here. This is where you can find us. You can find our material. Then let me show you my Rumble. I have to do my own self marketing and publicity. Yeah, let me show you my Rumble account. So this is our Rumble. So you go on Rumble. Rumble is an alternative platform like YouTube. It's a video platform or video and audio platform, but they have a lot of freedom in terms of how say it, freedom of speech. So it's not restrictive like YouTube. Rumble is much freer. You can say what you want to say there. There are limited restrictions in terms of freedom of expression, what you want to say, what's on your chest. You can say it on Rumble. Uh, it's a platform that promotes freedom of speech, contrary to YouTube that is very restrictive. So this is our Rumble account. You go there and then you press, you search for Tom Tomeka. You find us on our Rumble account. So these are all the accounts I've given you here. Let me stop sharing and then end this episode here. Okay, so guys, bye. Thanks for following us. Looking forward to see you on the next episode of the Tom Tombeka Unplugged podcast. Bye. Let me end this screen here.